So last night, I was thinking about a way for us to talk. And I began to think about the great Sergio Leone's, who directed the film The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And at that film, in the end, there's a scene where the three characters have a duel. And
when they look at each other's eyes.
Yes. And it goes on for a very long time, and it's only music. But I began to think about us in that category, that in a way, we are three individuals all searching for gold in our creativity. And I thought it could be a kind of a funky question to ask, which one of us would be the good and the bad and the ugly? Like, how would you see yourself in what role? Like, who would you be?
I can be any. If I would be an actor, I would play. In life, you are more or less everything. Sometimes you're good, sometimes you're bad.
I think I would be the ugly.
Okay, so feel safe.
It's true that this situation, it's a bit like that.
It's like we're all, our eyes go cross and path.
Maybe we can start talking about why we decided to work together, and I can start saying why I like the idea, because I think that in these difficult moments, to enlarge the conversation, to know more of other people's opinion. More and more, the problem of fashion is that more and more is required. Seems that to do good clothes sometimes is not enough. Because we have a lot of social relevance, millions of people, followers, and so on, and fashion is kind of becoming a pop thing. I think about, I always try to say something, of course, with my shows, to get the spirit of the moment, or doing maybe a subtle criticism, something happening, and try to answer with my job, with my only instrument, to what I see around. So now the fact that you are here, for me, it's like making the conversation more rich and possibly more interesting. And because we spoke about humanity, crudeness, whatever we will talk about after, the idea of this home, of the home, it's a great idea, but maybe we talk about it.
Well, I think in a way, we come from such separate worlds, but they're worlds that are very depending on each other in a way. You know, creativity has so many tentacles, but it all leads back to the same spider, even though it's a giant web. Obviously, what we're doing right now, fashion, in a more futuristic approach, you know, that everything is becoming more infused into each other. It's becoming more like one stream of constant just accessibility. And because screens are so much our life now, we depend so much on what we see, and everything we see is based on how we react.
What I like about your movie, or the beginning of these shorts that we are playing in the room, is that there is the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedroom, and the living room. And so it goes to essential of life. So because at the end, a lot of things happen in the home and they can represent what's relevant. And for me, the only interesting part of my job in this moment is trying to do something useful. And this time we did something that were relating to this idea. We talked about crude, we talked about raw.
Especially, we talk a lot about reality also. I am very interested in the idea of an abstract narrative. And since forever, kind of, I like the idea that you have a narrative, but you can't really literally analyze it.
And I find it very interesting when people have the ability to actually achieve something like that. Like, what inspires you? Like, what gets you?
But that goes both ways, I guess. I mean, I think that's what is for us very natural. It's a very natural, instinctive, ongoing process.
Also because probably it's your work to represent reality.
It's our
with
nature,
clothes.
I would almost say. That's our nature. I think the same about so many creative people whose work I find phenomenal.
Our work is to transform ideas, vision in an object. It's our job. So for us it's natural to think about all these different elements because, of course, when you do the company, the fashion show, it's a lot of different things. You transform your beliefs in your movie, and we transform our beliefs in what people would need to
I think
dress.
in the core it's not so different. I think in the core it's like what's going on in your brain, in your mind, in your heart, and you feel as a creative animal. I think you do feel constantly this desire to bring out what's in you in terms of, you know, like creative outing, let's say. And then it's a medium. Like for you, it's the medium is directing. For us, the medium is the collections.
A director is an artist. We are creative people dedicated to company. We work for a company who has to sell stuff. So we can be as creative as we can, but I never saw myself as an artist. You, as a film director, you are an artist, as a profession.
But what's an artist? I always ask myself that question because I never went to school. I dropped out of film school.
Did you go?
No, I started it and I dropped out. And everyone got very angry at me because they felt it was very arrogant. But my mother always said I was a genius, so I had the confidence of arrogance.
It's difficult to be an artist because when you have the whole possibility, it's even more difficult.
Yeah, it's like I almost, because I feel very envious of your field because I like, oh my God, look at all that easy creative freedom they have. God, I have to fight for mine every day. I consider myself an expressionist because I express what I feel. And hopefully some people will like it and some people will eventually hate it. But I always feel that's the only way that you can achieve anything.
It's not very different from us. I think when we started, it's the same. You have the desire to do it, and then actually I think that our freedom is, we have more freedom if people like what we do. You know what I mean? Like we have obviously the freedom to do what we want to do, but I think you have more freedom if people like what you do, because it's like Miuccia says, it's not art what we do. We create a product for people.
We are creating, and we have to be creative in a different context, I would say.
But people need to like it, otherwise it cannot exist, because if people won't like it and they don't buy it, then we cannot exist. It cannot exist without people.
And what about failure? I always...
Failure?
Well, I mean, it's a constant, you know, friend of ours named failure. And in the beginning of my life, I didn't know it existed in the beginning, because in the beginning you don't know failure. And then I experienced terrible failure, and I suddenly had a new friend in my life called failure.
I agree.
Or disappointment.
We all have that.
And it's like, I have found he has been a big part of my life.
Now he's a friend, the failure.
He became a friend because I figured out how to trick failure. I found a way to put him in checkmate. Because at a certain point, I realized I was not going to be the greatest. And that was also okay. but then I was going to be the greatest at what I did. And I, you know, having a mother that supported me very much all my life, maybe it came from that. But how do you, I'm interested in, because I deal with it very practically now, you know, that it's all around me, but I found a way to put it in its place, because you cannot be, no one can ever take away your authenticity. You can never be criticized for being real. But still, we live, certainly more than ever, in a society that is so judgmental of everything we do. So we have to watch every word we say now. Our thoughts have to be watched. We are very conscious more than ever. We're, in a way, less free.
Yeah.
Even though we are in an interesting time of evolution and accessibility, and there's so much of everything, we're in a way not very free because of what's going on right now. And so failure has kind of come back to kind of haunt, at least in my situation, a little bit, but I have to put failure checkmate again.
I think it's a constant part of your life. Thanks God, very often is a failure here, a success there. So basically,
It balances out.
not is the total failure of everything. So, but sometimes you fail in something, sometimes you succeed in something. Of course, it's always present, and you fear and you fear it the day you're not able anymore to do anything, and anything you do it's wrong, and so on.
What I do think, which relates, is that I think that the next always needs to be better. We need, you know, I always feel like, I want to do better, I want to do better. Which clearly doesn't always work, of course, which is then maybe the failure. But it needs to be that, it needs to be like that. I need to think that the next one needs to be better. I think otherwise I would stop, because I think you need to have that challenge. You need to have the challenge to make it better, more interesting, more exciting, more whatever you want it to be.
I've suddenly realized right now in this conversation how, at least for me, of a personal thing it's turned into. I mean, all these ideas that we've been talking about for the last 6 months and meeting about, and some things worked, some things didn't, but now that it's all becoming, it has a great philosophy, because I think in a way it's like an expression of what it's like to be an artist. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I want to thank you both for giving me that opportunity to be part of this.
Thank you to you.